feudal Japanese court politics, family drama, ambition, aging, regret, revenge, tragedy, madness, the human condition. Tonight on Watch This with Rick Ramos, our first episode of 2026. One of Akira Kurosawa's last masterpieces, 1985's Ron, Rick, what say you?
Volumes. I could say volumes about this movie. In the pantheon of Kurosawa's work, film history, and my own relationship to it. This is a film that goes back with me almost over 3 decades. I remember seeing this movie in high school. I remember a teacher, an English teacher, my senior year, the great Miss Kyle. I mean, I don't know where she is right now. I don't know what she's doing. I hope she's well. I hope, everyone. You're lucky if you have that one teacher that inspires you and really opens your mind to the potential of the arts and culture. And I got really lucky with Miss Kyle. She was an amazing teacher, and we were studying Shakespeare. And she knew that I loved film. She knew that I was passionate, and I was a real cineast, even at 16, 17. And she said, if you need a little bit of help understanding, we were reading King Lear, and we were watching Olivier's performance of it. And she said, and she only said this to me, if you need a little bit of help with this, or something doesn't make sense to you, watch Akira Kurosawa's Ran. And she was like, do you know Kurosawa? And I was like, yeah, he did the Seven Samurai. And she was like, yeah, this is one of his last great films. I think at that point in 90, he still had maybe 3, maybe 4 films left in his. He had Dreams, Rhapsody in August, and Maradayo, the last film that he would do. But I had to go to a library to find this movie, and I found it. You remember when you could check out videotapes?
Oh yeah.
You remember that? That was that was like the high end Tower Records. So I found it, and I put it on one day. And I think back on how bad it must have looked on video. And I'm still amazed by that first viewing and what jumped out at me as everything that is wrong with the human species, everything, greed, paranoia, pride, gluttony, the desire to see your enemies vanquished in front of you, the cruelty that goes with government warlords and the ascension of power. And I understood the story in a way that I didn't get with Shakespeare. And I think that's part of the power of Kurosawa in being able to create a story and transport something that is originally English into this world, and how beautifully it fit into the history of ancient Japan, the shogunate era, the era of samurai, that bridge between samurai culture, samurai swords, and the emergence of gunpowder and rifles and the slow modernization of Japan. but the constant of human treachery in all of that. And I was really blown away. And up until that point, I had seen great films, and I had seen films that I thought were artistic masterpieces, but I had never seen anything on this scale. I don't even know if I might have seen Lawrence of Arabia by that point. So I had seen one of the greatest films ever made, but I had never seen anything like this. But and the prejudice that I'm about to say is is knowingly acknowledged. I can recognize it, but watching white, even European stories in English doesn't prepare you for the foreignness of this kind of cinema, which is in a way a gifting and an unwrapping of the power of the image. Because as you're watching it, you have something that's being translated in subtitles, obviously. But so much of the emotion is in the look, the reactions, the music, the cinematography, and all of that. I think that was one of the first times that I saw that foreign films, I understood the true potential of cinema watching that movie, because I saw how much bigger cinema was than just listening to a story being told to you. Does that make sense? Does that?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a bridge from it was a bridge between popular American cinema to the art and the emotion of world cinema. It amplifies what is created here, because you start watching movies. I guarantee you that if you watch foreign films, you pay more attention to the image, you pay more attention to the acting, the styles, the reaction, the direction. Everything is amped up because you're searching for meaning that is not necessarily in the words. And that bowls over into English language films as well. It carries your understanding, and it amplifies your knowledge of cinema. Even watching Ron on this small, remember those, well, it was a big TV at the time, one of those 32-inch box TVs, that thing that weighed about 70, 80 pounds. You remember those bad boys, those tube TVs?
Oh, yeah.
You were gifted this whole new world. Everything changed. Now that I think about it, everything changed after watching Ron. It was an incredible experience, and it's one that sticks with me today. And as I was watching it 2 nights ago and then last night, the story hit me a lot harder now. I haven't seen Ron full from beginning to end in about 10 years. And I couldn't help but look at the world that we live in now. Look at the America that I'm living in. And I don't mean to sound I don't mean to exaggerate the importance of Donald Trump and the political spectrum as it exists today, but it's hard to watch this film and not see elements of the Trump administration in it. A lot of times, people are dismissive of movie criticism because they're saying, well, you read too much into it and you don't get to enjoy a film. But the beauty of this and the beauty of Shakespeare's original his original story is the universal nature of the danger and the smallness of humanity. Watching this film, this is not just a film. This is more than just a film. This is more than just a story that's being told. This is life. This is the world that we live in. This film is a micro. It's a magnifying glass on our faults, our weaknesses, our the worst qualities of who we are. It's a tragedy. And it's a difficult film. But I think because of its honesty and because of its brilliant performance by the late Tatsuya Nakadai, who passed away last month at the age of 93, I think it was, either 93 or 95. It's one of those examples of art that makes you realize the importance of the artist. The importance of the artist in being able to shine a light on the world that we live in, to put that mirror in front of us so that we can see. This might be 1700s, 1800s Japan, but I see so much of it in 2025 America. And I don't say that lightly, dismissively, or to be cute. This movie scared me more watching it this time. Before it was entertainment. Now it's a harsh examination of reality. That being said, I defer to you, Mr. Chavez, and I'm interested in your relationship to it.
I don't remember when I first saw it, but I feel like it was also rented from the library.
Mm-hmm.
I probably turned it in late, because I have things at the library that I turn in late,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have things that I turn in really late because I like them.
Makes sense.
The regular late is just me being that person. But jumping off, you went in a couple directions.
I went in a few directions, yeah, on that one, yeah.
There's the human nature aspect, which gets into politics, because that's basically how humans interact with one another. And then there's the film watching, how one interacts, how humans interact with film. The idea of a foreign film, kind of like how an American will relate to a foreign film. It is true; it does open you up to other types of, and I don't even want to say storytelling because it is storytelling, but it's beyond narrative because there's so much in film that can go beyond narrative if it's allowed to, or if the director has that conscious kind of intention to do that. Typically, in the U.S., we focus on story. We focus on what's driving the plot. We have the fucking plot points. We have the when we've talked about this. We have the hero's journey. We have the all of this stuff. The 3-act structure. We have, and not to say that this doesn't exist in other all around the world. Obviously, it does.
Mhm.
But you have more of a tendency towards art house, potentially in other countries, where you have relationships between visual artists and filmmakers and literature and in a way that's more porous than in the U.S. I mean, you do have some of that once you get into underground film, once you get into Andy Warhol and you get into like that type of shit. Typically, the Hollywood machine wants to tell you a boy meets girl story or whatever kind of story, so that you can put the asses in the seats, so on and so forth. This is an art film, but it's an epic art film. Kurosawa uses color coding. There's symbolism in the shots. There's the poetry of the image. There's palette. There's light and shadow. Not only are these things pretty to look at, or striking, or terrible, or ghastly, or horrifying, or shocking, or whatever, they're also loaded with meaning. Sometimes there's one shot, and it's like there's one shot of a blind character towards the end of the film, and he's like in an elevated place, and then in the distance, a bird just flies straight past him. Like it's not past him because it's in the distance, but it's in the shot. It flies like behind him, and that character, you know that character can't see that because the character's blind. But in all of this rubble, you have something that's just beautiful, and there's a lot of things that take place in the film that as I was watching it, I was thinking, how much of these things are just accidents that were just captured, and that also kind of lends itself to the way that you interpret the film, because the film is ultimately about, in that sense, it's not only like a Shakespearean based tragedy. It's Ron is based on King Lear, but it also goes back to like Greek tragedy, where the tragic figure, regardless of their choices, are still powerless to fate. And oftentimes, the more they try to do, whether it's the right thing or they try to avoid doing the wrong thing, it ends up making it worse for themselves and for others. And so in this story, with all of the color coding of there are 3 brothers, yellow, red, and blue, it's a story of a lord with 3 sons. And that's a movie fan who doesn't know this film is going like, oh, it sounds like Godfather. Like at first, you know what I mean? It's a lord with 3 sons.
Yeah.
Of course, the 3 sons have different personalities, so it is like that. But it's different. He's ready to essentially retire, and he's going to give his position and his authority to one of the sons. And he does. And he gives his authority to the son who has the most flowery speech, and the son who has the most seemingly disrespectful reaction to the father's decision is the one who gets mistreated and banished for his disrespect. But he's actually just being honest. And It's based on King Lear is an English king who divides his kingdom. He's going to divide his kingdom among his 3 daughters based on how much they flatter him. And one of his daughters, Cordelia, is cast out. And there's conflict and tragedy and madness, just as in Ron, in the adaptation. In Ron, in this film, the Lord takes 3 arrows. He takes 1 arrow and he hands each one of his sons an arrow and he says, break it. And they break it, snap it in half. Then he takes 3 into a bundle and he says, break this. The first son, the eldest son, Daro, the yellow son, his banner is yellow. He tries, he can't. Jiro, the middle son, the red son, whose banner is red, he tries, he can't. Saburo, the blue son, also tries, can't. Ultimately, he breaks it across his knee, like the front part of his knee, by his shin or whatever. He like forces it, and he's like, still it can break with enough force, because the metaphor is like, alone you'll be broken. Together, you have strength. You have to stand together and basically under my decision. And the blue son is like, you're fucking up right now. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you, but this is not a good decision on your part. And it looks like he's just being a bitter asshole because he didn't get the position. And so the dad is like, fuck off. You're out of here. You're banished.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that you see that the eldest son, the yellow son, is ambitious and treacherous. The middle son is also treacherous, but he's weak. He tries to his position as the middle child is used as a metaphor because he tries basically to play both sides. And in a sense, he wants to appear to please everyone while ensuring his own power. And the youngest son is brash and cast out. And in there are the victims of the High Lord, the father, of his rise to power. So that ultimately his daughter-in-law is to take from another Shakespeare character. She becomes like a Lady Macbeth because she's doing all this shit to influence her. She's the wife of the eldest son, the yellow son. She ends up becoming, spoiler fucking alert, she becomes the wife or something like the wife of the middle son. Her whole shit is the long game of, I'm going to fuck this family up because they fucked up my family.
She's one of the most admirable characters in the film, in my opinion. I like her.
She's everybody. You can see how they would be led to do what they're going to do in order because of ambition and self-preservation, but it's fucked up. They're all fucked up.
Yeah. Well, she is driven by hate. She's driven by hate and anger and revenge, bitterness. But it's earned. It's well earned. I wouldn't. I don't envy her status, who she is forced to become by life, and she's contrasted by a second wife, the wife of the second son, Lady Sui, who, as we find out later, her family's castle was burned to the ground. Her family, her parents were killed in front of her, and in the most cruel act, her younger brother had his eyes gouged out.
Yeah.
by the Lord Hidetora, which is
Yeah.
somewhat different from the character or how it's played out in Shakespeare's Lear.
Yeah.
There is a character whose Gloucester's eyes are gouged out, correct? But it wasn't Lear who did it. It was in part Lear's ineffectiveness to do anything about it. I can't remember exactly.
Gloucester's eyes are gouged out by Cornwall, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it in King Lear, there's kind of like two story streams. One is like the king and his daughters,
Yeah.
and the other is another son and his kind of rise to power.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's Gloucester and Edmund and then his other son Edgar. So it's kind of like these two parallel stories of these family dynamics, and it's very archetypal. You can see that type of shit in more accessible to our frame of mind is like Star Wars or
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Where you have these royal dramas and who is going to be like the dad, who's going to play up to the dad, who's going to hate the dad, who's going to overthrow the dad, who's going to all of that. And it's super fucking drama.
Yeah, definitely.
In the sense of high drama, tragedy, theatricality, that, but also drama like the best fucking reality TV. And I once kind of when we were talking about TV years ago, I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about the Kardashians as a version of King Lear.
Yeah.
Where it's this fucking this woman and her three daughters and their dramas. And that's what this is, except this is watching a almost 3 hour film about and I can hear your voice saying it. It's like people making bad choices.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what's the best worst choice, or the worst bad choice. And everything that the dad did to build his own power comes back at him by his sons doing it. All the fucked up shit that he did comes back. And all the while he has with him this sacred fool character, this jester character who, in the role of the fool, there's always this element built in that the fool, the comic, the comedian, the mime, that person breaks up the drama to release tension. So they provide comic relief, but at the same time, they speak truth to power. And they provide wisdom to humor and absurdity. And so you have this gender bending, kind of ambiguous clown character who is tender towards the king, the Lord, but at the same time critical, sometimes mocking. And when one of the sons guards tries to or moves to kill the jester, the Lord shoots an arrow into that guy's back and kills him. And one of the lines of that fool character is, "In a mad world, only the mad are sane."
Mm-hmm.
There's one of the greatest montages of all cinema history in the center of this film. And you see the transformation from this Lord to a man who loses it. He's lost his wits.
Yeah.
And he becomes like, he's in the same way that when, as we age, we in many ways become more childlike. He becomes childlike. He ends up picking flowers. He goes from realizing, wait, what's changed? And this is at first foolish of him, because it's like, how could you not have seen like that? You gave away all of your power, and now when you still want to be treated a certain way because you retained your title, and you assume that you would retain some form of respect, now you're pushed off to the side, marginalized. And that's what happens as we age. It's the young lions, right?
Sure.
But it's the son. And he's going, what the fuck? And then next thing you know, his fucking castle's in flames, and he's looking for a dagger to kill himself, to commit ritual suicide, but he can't. Everybody's dying around him. That montage it's just music and scenes of these like guard towers in flames, and blood is just dripping down,
pouring
down like from a faucet, down the corners of this castle. Men are stacked up against fences full of arrows. People are crawling around with their backs like they look like those pins that you put needles in, where you keep your needles before you put it in that Danish cookie box that everyone has. They look like pin cushions like that. Or one guy has an arrow right in his eye, and he just dies like hanging off of a fence post.
Of a fence, yeah. There's another guy sitting in blood, staring at his severed arm.
Yeah, he's holding it, right?
Yeah, he's holding it.
He's holding it in his other arm.
That's a shot that Spielberg would steal 20 years later in or 10 years later in Saving Private Ryan.
And that's crazy. You would think that's 10 years later.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing.
Like centuries apart from this film.
Yeah.
I mean, this film was made like around the time of E.T.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a fucking 80s movie.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
But you're thinking it's in a fucking, this is like a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, called Feudal Japan. And it's fucked up. And I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and it's raining outside. It's all gloomy, and it adds to it. And I'm just sitting there drinking tea and going like, God, this is fucked up. This is so fucked up. And rarely do I say that, because most of the time I'm like, this is not fucked up enough, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there watching, I'm going, it's so fucked up. This is so beautiful and fucked up. God, fuck.
But what is the root of that? The truth of the story. I think the truth of the story, the fact that this is happening in, I don't know, 17th or 18th century Japan. It's happening in 20th century Europe, Italy, Germany, Russia. This is happening in Cambodia. This is happening in Central and South America. This is happening here as we speak now. Maybe not to no, actually, if you turn on the news and you from a few months ago, and you look at the streets of Los Angeles with ICE and Border Patrol in the streets of Los Angeles, and fires and smoking people out and grabbing people up. I mean, I don't think it's too far a stretch to say that this is who we are. We're a violent, angry, bitter, and evil people that are capable of great injustice. in the desire to either gain power, maintain power, or to expand power. You watch something like this and you're telling yourself, even though you like how fucked up things can get and how they should go further in movies. Most movies are afraid to go to the places that this movie goes to because most movies do not want to challenge an audience to look within themselves to see the things about us that we don't like.
That's true. Most art, like,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that art forms are supposed to do.
Yeah.
And and to be able to do it in a way that is both horrifying but also sublime in its beauty.
Yes.
I mean, one of the most beautiful shots is one character gets just suddenly and quickly executed, and that character is in a seated position, and there are like three like high-ranking samurai there, and one just does this like upward, like diagonal slice from the lower right up to the left, and as he does that, another character steps into your, like, as the audience member, he steps in the way, so you don't see the actual slice on the body, but you see this like splash, this diagonal upwards, like gush of blood on the back wall, and it's just like, I think at that point, like, Leslie was like walking in and out, and she was like, "Oh, that was quick."
Imagine being 16 years old, never having seen anything like that, and you're watching this movie, and you get to that point, and you're like, "What the fuck did I just see?"
Yeah,
incredible. It was an incredible, and it's not violence for violence sake. It's not violence that is meant to titillate or to excite. It's the brutality. And as you watch the film, you're either cheering because you hate this character, or if you're at least if you're paying attention, a degree of empathy creeps in, and you realize this is what she was preparing for. This is what that character is preparing for. Everything that has motivated every step of her of her being has moved to this very moment. This is the acceptance of her revenge. And it means more to me now watching it with the life experience to inform something like that than it did at 17, 16 when you're excited by the power of the unexpected, by the brutality of it. As you get older, you watch movies differently. They resonate differently. And this is definitely a movie that as I've gotten older, I've seen the different purpose to what Kurosawa was making. I wish I could watch it again through 17, 16-year-old eyes. I can't do that. I can only vaguely remember it. But now it's one of the great moments in his filmography, and one of the great moments in cinema, because it still holds that power. It still has something that resonates, that says something about us and the power of anger. Because I'm not sure. There's a part of me that says what she did was absolutely worth it. But then you have to wonder about the sacrifice, with the understanding that just about every move that you make is based on sacrifice, or at least anything that matters is based on sacrifice. And she makes the
in the
ultimate.
hopes, in the hopes that it'll pay off in a way that you can topple the whole thing.
Well, as you watch this, Tatsuya Nakadai gives an incredible performance, and he builds sympathy, because in the moment you're watching somebody diminish. You're watching, and if you've ever been around an old person or somebody that, a grandfather, parents, that at one point you might have feared, and then to slowly turn into, what they become with the effects of age, there was empathy and there was a sadness to it. But with the Hitatora, you're reminded of the cruelty of his life, the cruelty of who he was in order to gain the power. And you also have the understanding that not everything he did was a means to an end. A lot of what he did was for the sake of cruelty. A sadomasochistic desire to hurt others, and to have that hurt inspire. I find it, he's a difficult character. And I gotta say, Tatsuya Nakadai he doesn't go out of his way to make the character sympathetic. Because as you're watching him slowly descend into madness, whatever feelings of sympathy you might have, you're quickly brought in to the realization was, look what he has done. Look at the lives that he has destroyed, and the cruel way in which he did it. I find myself almost wanting to slap myself for starting to have sympathy for him.
What's one of those things, like,
yeah,
it's not as simple as I do or I don't. It's
no, you're absolutely right with that. Yeah,
when you do, there are moments when he comes out of that montage.
Oh God, that's incredible.
There's the montage. It's all music, like I said, and it's like different shots, these different in the sequence, and it ends with a gunshot, and it brings it back to the sounds of the world versus just music. Then more action happens, and you see him now. He's looking for a dagger, a sword. He's losing it, and he starts dragging the
scabbard.
The scabbard,
yeah,
for this sword that he can't find, and you see it. It's like hanging from a strap, and then you see from behind a set of steps, and you just see the scabbard like coming down into the shot first, and then his feet, and he's just kind of like stepping, and now he looks dead already.
Yeah,
he's like a ghost, and he comes out of from the top of this flaming castle down these steps, and the bannerman of one of his sons goes to one side of the screen, and yellow, and then the red ones go to the other side. His two sons are against him. The banished one is nowhere in sight because he's been banished. The ones that he favored are the ones who are against him. And he's just this shadow coming out of this flaming fortress, and you're just going like, what the fuck? Like, this is the most beautiful shit like I've ever seen. And the armies basically part, and he just walks out in this daze.
Yeah.
And he walks right out of the fucking castle, like off the castle grounds. And in the film, they say it's his madness that saved him. Had he been in his right mind as he was before, he would have killed himself.
Yeah.
Ritualistically. Like, that's the moment. All is lost now. To retake my honor, I'm going to kill myself. But he couldn't. And they don't kill him. And one of the advisors of the
Keto.
Red Sun is like, kill him. Like, the die is cast. Like, everything that has been set in motion, you have to act on it now. You have to just follow this line of action. Because those men are all pushing for their leaders to take power, because then they're closer to power. I don't know if have you seen any of the South Park, the recent South Park ones?
Yeah, I've seen them all. It's been insane. Hilarious and insane, yeah.
I mean, it started off with literally the Emperor is not wearing any clothes.
Mm-hmm.
To, like, the Emperor wants to kill his heir, you know?
Yeah.
It's very along these lines, where it's comedy, but you see all of the people who are close to power, they want to topple the ruler, or they want to position themselves in such a way that they can maintain their own power. And it's always like that. And it's always been like that. And whether you're watching right now on Netflix is the fucking P. Diddy Reckoning thing or whatever. Leslie and I watched that we watched it in parts. You always have the bloody rise to power, the struggle to maintain it, the decline, and usually the decline of one is the struggle to rise to power, the bloody struggle of another. Whether it's fucking Rocky or Godfather or you name it, Star Wars, politics, professional wrestling. It's what we do and what we talk about since the beginnings of time. When we would gather around the fire and you go like, did you hear about so and so? And then it's one of those where it's like, oh God, what now? Or like, no, what are you talking about? What happened? You know, like real quick.
Yeah.
Whether it's around the water cooler, the proverbial water cooler at work, or any of that shit. We love these tales. And they're fucked up. And we don't learn from them. Because it's in our nature to behave this way, and it's commented on in the film.
Mm-hmm.
That we claim as human beings to not want suffering, but we cause it, and we go towards the drama. We create it. We're fucking hungry for power, thirsty for power, and that the world is mad, and that the gods either don't exist or they betrayed humans, or a number of other bleak interpretations,
Yeah.
There are so many moments in fields, wet fields, um, where it's just poetry. Um, Towards the end of the film, you just see a scroll. It's one of the manifestations of the Buddha, um, on this beautiful scroll, and it just drops. And if you know about Buddhism, you're reminded, like, one the first principle is like, all life is, the way it's normally translated is that all life is suffering. Like, that's coming out the gate. Like, that's it.
I don't think it's too far off. Yeah.
And with this film, but it's beautiful. It's suffering rendered beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever lessons we can derive from that beautiful suffering, they're there.
Yeah. I think it's very telling to come out of Kurosawa's filmography. I think Seven Samurai was 52 or 53, right? Correct? Something like
I don't
53 or
remember.
54.
Seven Samurai. Yeah, like mid-50s, basically.
Yeah, mid-50s. During that time, you would see Yojimbo, Sanjuro, you would see High and Low, particular favorite of mine. You would see The Bad Sleep Well. He would adapt Shakespeare two other times. The Bad Sleep Well was an adaptation of Hamlet. Throne of Blood was obviously Macbeth. But there was always the sense of hope in a Kurosawa film. The power of the individual to rise up against the collective mindset. And there was always, where there might not be a necessarily happy ending, there was the idea that things would eventually work out. High and Low, Seven Samurai, Sanjuro, to a degree, that the town is going to be safe after the Yojimbo leaves. In both Yojimbo and Sanjuro, Kingo Gondo will go on to make shoes again in High and Low. But this is the first time where there was a certain hopelessness in his filmography. And I think you know his films well enough to see that as well. And what I'm interested in is, after you see a movie so many times and you take the story for what it is, you take the performances, sometimes it comes more immediately, but sometimes it has to marinate. And part of the marinating here is to understand how Kurosawa, as the artist, as the filmmaker, gets to a point where he can make a film as bleak, as dark, and as hopeless as this film is. I mean, am I wrong? Do you see that in the same way that I do, or do you see more hope? Do you see hope in this film? Because I think it's about as bleak a film as he's ever made.
I mean, if there is hope, it's in. I think it's in those beautiful shots. It's in that shot of the blind character, he was so many years ago blinded by the Lord, and he's at that elevated place. Everyone's dead, and he's just kind of. I mean, he's not looking out because he can't see, but he's just kind of facing out, essentially looking at all the rubble. And then there's that bird that just kind of flies past, and the Buddha scroll drops. And it reminds me of, there's a Leonard Cohen line that gets quoted a lot. It says, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And it reminds me of that. And of course, Leonard Cohen was very much interested in Buddhism and Zen Buddhism,
Yeah.
and a practitioner, where he would spend months at a time in a monastery, um, and was into sexual politics as a subject matter mixed with spirituality of different types, and and suffered from depression and whatever,
Yeah.
and so like it's kind of um, it is bleak, but it is one of those things like that story. There's another story where it's someone's being chased by a tiger, and they're hanging off the edge of a cliff, and the tiger's above trying to eat them, and as they dangle from the edge of the cliff, they see the most beautiful berry. I don't know if you've heard that
No, I've never heard this.
story or whatever. And the idea is like to taste the berry, like everything's fucked up, but there's still elements of beauty and hope. Yeah, and it's not hope like, oh, this berry's gonna fucking save me.
No, but the acknowledgement of something beautiful in this world,
right?
And that I'm here to at least witness that there's the possibility of that,
right?
And so I asked this question because or at least I present this idea because to know the history of Kurosawa as a filmmaker, you have to understand, with all filmmakers, great acknowledged masters, the Fellinis, the Hitchcocks, the Scorseses, the Spielbergs, there's always a point when their work is no longer financially viable.
Yeah.
And you've seen directors having to go hat in hand. Scorsese going to Netflix, going to Apple TV. Fellini near the end of his life being unable to make projects. Sergio Leone. I mean, it's a story that's been it's told countless times. And with Kurosawa, after Redbeard in '65. There was a combination of that film going over budget, the problems that he had with Mifune, and which would ultimately mean they would never work together again, and would only sporadically see each other over the next 20 some odd years or 30 years between that film and each man's death. Mifune in I think 97, Kurosawa in 99, I think. But there was the falling off, the changing temperament of Japanese audiences, world cinema audiences, and Kurosawa would be unable, although acknowledged as this great filmmaker, this some would say probably the greatest filmmaker of all time. I mean, that's debatable, but definitely within that context of the argument, being unable to get a film made, forming a company much the way that United Artists was formed with Mary Pickford and Chaplin and D.W. Griffith and I think Douglas Fairbanks, artists trying to produce their own films. They I think it was Nagisa Oshima, Kurosawa, and I can't remember the Kinji Fukusaku. I think maybe those three came together to form a film company. Kurosawa's The Deskaden was supposed to be the first film, his first attempt at a color film, his first project, and it died. It bombed horrifically, bankrupted that studio or whatever it was, that production company, not a studio, production company, and I don't think he could make another. Between Redbeard and The Deskaden, he didn't make a film for like 5 years. His eyesight was starting to fail. So please be patient with this, both you, Mr. Chavez, and the listener, because the point of it is
No,
there's a
I'm
there's a
listening.
yeah there's an element of not only Kurosawa adapting Shakespeare or a universal story, but also telling his own story through Lear.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he
I'm
is
AJ
Hidetora.
Bond.
Yeah, I mean it's there's a lot there. He would actually commit suicide in 73 or 74. He would attempt suicide, which, and I can't be sure of this, but the attitude of suicide in Asian cultures, in Japanese culture, is not viewed in the same way it's viewed in Western cultures regarding artists. The idea was that when an artist was no longer viable, and this is what I've read, I can't be sure of this, but this is what I've read a couple of different places. It was perfectly acceptable for an artist to to attempt to commit suicide because it was the logical step in the progression of the life, the art, all of that. You're no longer able to do the thing that you were put here to do. So now you must sacrifice that. He attempted suicide. He failed. Um, and then I don't know who, I think that was when he met Serge Silberman, the guy that would produce this film. And they worked on a Russian film called Dersa Uzula. Actually, a really good film. I thought it was exceptional. I saw it about 15 years ago at the American Cinematheque at the Egyptian, and I was really blown away by the power of it. It was a Russian co-production. It was set in Russia, a Mongolian tracker, and his becoming antiquated in a world that was passing him by. So
Yeah.
become the mountain man who society is encroaching on, and he's no longer able to continue doing what he's doing because number one, the world won't allow it, but also his eyesight's failing and his body is breaking down. It's a sad movie, but it's very much a Kurosawa at that time. Then he would do Kagemusha, which was basically The Prince and the Pauper. And it was a film that he considered a run-up to Ron. So he really wanted to do Ron. During the making of Dersa Uzula, he had started writing, and he was already losing his eyesight. Some people say that by the time he did Ron, he was almost completely blind, which I find that difficult to believe, but
Right.
maybe it was. I don't know how you achieve the beauty of this film and be blind at the same time. But this is something that he did. Every frame, or at least not every frame, but every shot in the film, he storyboarded. So there are literally thousands.
Yeah.
Have you seen these? Have you seen them?
I've seen some. Yeah, I've seen them online.
There are thousands of paintings of different scenes from this film that if he wasn't going to be able to make the film, he made the film in these paintings. So his production designer, his cinematographer, they all referenced this during the making of this film. So Kagemusha was a co-production with, I think George Lucas and Coppola came in to help fund that. He got that made. He won some awards. He was back on, he was at least respected to the point where they were like, it's almost an embarrassment to Japanese cinema if we don't allow this man to make a movie. So he was able to make Ron, $11-12 million, which seems like nothing even in 83, but was the most expensive movie ever made in Japan. And to achieve this, it was I think there's something to say about the sons abandoning their father as a parallel with the movie industry and audiences abandoning Kurosawa.
100%. Yeah,
Absolutely. So it all creeps into the art. So it's it's a Shakespearean story, but it's also based in a certain historical fact or historical reality of both Kurosawa's life, but also a lord from this period who, I think his name is from the Zengoku period, a warlord named Mori Motonari. And this is the 15th and 16th centuries of Japan. And in the story was that the lord had 3 devoted sons, and Kurosawa asked the question: what if the sons were not devoted? What if they were? He describes bad sons.
Yeah.
Where would that take the story? And that was before he had read King Lear. That was before he probably knew of Lear as a property, but he hadn't read it. After starting on the story, researching it, and then coming to King Lear, taking all of that and adding his own experience to it, I think you get one of the most personal films ever made. And I think it's pretty amazing what he was able to achieve on screen, with all the deficiencies that were working against him, financial, physical. At one point, his wife of 39 years dies during the making of this film. He took one day off to mourn her death, and then they began shooting again. And this is a film that I think production lasted something like 2 years. So shooting, pre-production, early pre-production. I'm not including all of that time of writing the script, creating the paintings, because if you add that to it, it would add another 10 years, because he was working on this for like 10 years before.
And how old is he when he's filming this?
I think he's 75. 1910. Yeah, he started shooting it when he was 73, and they finished in 80. It was finished and released in 85. So he was 75 years old when this film was released. And I remember 1990. This did not get nominated for Best Foreign Language Film because Kurosawa pissed off the Japanese film community by not attending the premiere in Tokyo. So the powers that be were pissed. They wouldn't submit it for an Oscar, which it probably would have won. I'm not sure what won that year, but it's hard to imagine that Kurosawa wouldn't win, especially at that point in his career and with the power of this film. Silberman, the producer, attempted to get it entered into the Academy as a French co-production. So it was a French film, but because it's not, the language spoken is Japanese, the Academy wouldn't allow it. 2 years later, and a year before I saw the film, Kurosawa was at the Academy Awards, and he was presented with his Lifetime Achievement Award by Coppola, Spielberg. I think Spielberg was up there, but I know it was Coppola and Lucas, and I think Spielberg was up there. And Kurosawa comes on stage, and he's a big guy. He was a big guy. He wasn't. You don't expect him to be over 6 feet tall. He was somewhere around 6'1". He was a big guy, and he said he didn't feel that he deserved the award because he's only now starting to understand. I'm paraphrasing, but he's only now starting to understand what film actually is. And I don't think he was being, I don't think he was doing that thing where people do, oh, I'm not all that great.
No, he was, it's also,
I think he was sincere. Yeah, I don't think he was trying to, I think he was very sincere about understanding. And years later, when Martin Scorsese was doing Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese referenced that, and he said, I had no idea what he meant when he was saying that. But now, as I'm turning 80 and I'm making this film, it makes perfect sense to me.
I mean, in there, I also hear like, if I'm barely figuring it out,
Yeah.
you motherfuckers go quit.
You motherfuckers need to quit right now. I remember
Or at least,
watching that. Yeah.
or you motherfuckers need to not quit and then see me in 50 years.
Yeah. Unbelievable, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just so incredible. And it's weird because I was 15 years old and I'm watching this on TV. And I know who this guy is. And I'm like, I'm enthralled by it. I think I had seen I think I'd seen Seven Samurai. Um, and my dad had told me about Clint Eastwood and The Man with No Name and how that was Yojimbo. So I wasn't the fan of Kurosawa that I would become, but I remember one of the things about the Academy Awards that I loved were the in memoriams, the montages of the salute to films where they would show all these clips and they would edit them together and you would see the magnificence and the grandness, images from Lawrence of Arabia and how they blended into Lean would blend into Kubrick with 2001, which would blend into Spielberg, blend into Kurosawa and De Palma, and it was amazing. But I remember these great filmmakers that were dying, or I remember them giving Fellini. I remember Fellini coming up on stage. And I remember Satyajit Ray in a hospital bed in India. I remember him lying in bed, and I think he died a few days later. But they filmed him in his hospital bed receiving his honorary Oscar. And I've only seen one of the Apo trilogy. I've seen the first film. And this is a great, in my small way as I can compare to Kurosawa, is that I have only barely begun to scratch the surface of the films that I need to watch.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be egotistical about that. I'm not trying to make anything grand. I'm saying there are so many movies that I have yet to really embrace and learn. And I think there's something about these great filmmakers that when you watch their films, you learn a little bit more about the culture. And I'm not talking just about their culture. I'm talking about the human culture and who we are and everything that makes us beautiful and horrible. Everything that makes us just the purpose of who we are, why we're here, and whatever the fuck it is that we're supposed to be doing. And I take this I take this very seriously. Last week I recorded an episode. You and I were unable to finish our midnight movie cult movie. We did a lot. And we had a lot of fun with it. But
we still got time.
And we still got we still got time, no doubt. But I talked for a little over an hour about what these movies mean to me. And regardless of the numbers, and we've said it in the past, regardless of the numbers, there's something that we're doing that is important because it's honest, it's educated, it's from the heart, and the purpose is for a handful of people to discover these movies that maybe they wouldn't have known about. The fact that there are people out there that have seen LIE or The War Room, I mean not The War Room, The War Zone, who have seen, who maybe said, "Hey, let's pick up that crazy fucking Fellini and let's see Satyricon. Let's see Life Before Christ and After Fellini." I love that.
Right.
We're doing a small thing, but if a handful of people out there are benefiting from it, I mean, we would do it. These are conversations that you and I would be having no matter what. The fact that somebody is out there taken from it, it makes it a little bit better. It makes it a little bit more important. And this is definitely a film that people know about, but maybe they haven't seen in a while, and maybe they need to go back to. Maybe they need to look at their political beliefs and put it into perspective of what needs to be done and the choices that need to be made, recognizing the bad choices and preparing to make the best bad one. I was really moved watching this, and I think it's the perfect film to open 2026, because this is going to either be really bad or we're going to figure out a way to make this shit work. But
I mean, yeah. We're going to look for those berries on the edge of the cliff somehow. And we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing a lot of our audience, like our audience is a niche audience. It's a small audience. It's an intimate audience. Those of you who are listening to this that have made it this far in versus the first 5 seconds of what is this next, you have been with us for years, many of you. And a lot of it is legacy from Rick. And our relationship to and figuring out and learning and deciding what we were going to do in this podcast thing has changed, and still we question what. I mean, I'm speaking for both of us, but primarily myself.
Sure.
Like, tell me if I'm wrong at any point. And yes, like our show is undermarketed. Our show is because for multiple reasons. We're also busy doing other things, other creative things. We have a lot of stuff going on, just like everyone else does. We've done a review or episodes, and we still have a few of those to go to kind of complete that. But we've talked about what we kind of looked back at our 10 years of doing this. We have now the buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. We've been doing that for a while. And we have people who are a core of that. Burroughs, Slim, Palmer, Lambert, Palmer, Slim. Burroughs is like a central core. Members month in and month out are doing it. If you've been listening to it, we don't do ads. We don't do all that other bullshit. We usually save this till the end. So it's like, if you're going to listen, like you're going to hear it at the end. The give me money part. This is something that, like, we've been pretty humble about it, but we're also proud of it. All it takes is $5 here, $5 there, or reaching out, or any form of kind of like saying like, hey, like, and people do that, where they say, this particular episode spoke to me. And it's weird how, since everyone's fucking different, one episode that it's just kind of like, that was just one episode in June to me.
Yeah.
To someone else is like, boom, here's $20, here's $25, here's $50. You're going like, oh, what the fuck? It doesn't have to be that. It can be $5 a month. It can be $5 whenever the fuck. It can be just continuing to tune in. Obviously, it's like, if I would have had my way, like, if people could just be like, hey, like, here's $5, dude, like, because we know you guys are putting in your time to do it. It's the cost of fucking the taxes on your coffee now.
Basically, yeah.
But the point is that in our current culture, time, that plus we're getting older, time is different. And attention span is different. So this is the call to action part, is like, if you want to contribute and you can, times are fucking hard. Cool. We appreciate that. buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. Beyond that, the price of admission is your attention and the desire to follow us on this journey. If you're old to this and you want to stay on board, you know some of the places that we can go to. We're going to continue to go to new places. If you're new to this, then stay with us or don't. I want to discover. I'm doing it with you, Rick, and in a certain way we're doing it with the audience, because now it's like when we watch films, we're also watching them anew with the audience in mind also.
Certainly.
So we're in 2026. We don't know where the fuck we're going to go. We have an idea. We have ideas.
Mm-hmm.
We have ideas about these conversations. We have ideas about the future. We have ideas about the future of cinema. I have ideas about movies that I've seen 100 times. But each time you watch them, it's different. So 2026, those who are in, you're in. Those, this isn't for you, it's not for you. The it's not for you crowd hasn't made it this far into the episode, typically. So if you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. We're going in. We'll take you with us, and we'll see you next time.